I'm here now with Mrs. Kitty O'Shea, Grine, former Vice Principal of Scoil Mhuire National School. Retired now for the past 20 years and looking as if she never retired. Kitty, tell me about your family. Where were you born, and tell me about your family and so on.
Well, Jerome, I was born in 1932, and my mother at the time was teaching in Listelic. So, and my father, who was a Garda Síochána, he was down in Logue, away down in South Kerry. So they had no permanent home, you see. And my mother used to stay in Listelic, and they came to Armagh, where my grandmother and grandfather lived. So I was born in Armagh. 2 years after Bernie was born, and then my father was transferred to Feenet, so they had a home. So the other children then, I was the eldest of 8, the others were born in Feenet, but Bernie and I stayed on in Armagh. So they came anyhow. Of course, we had an idyllic childhood. My grandfather was a lovely man.
What was your grandfather's name?
Michael O'Brien. He came from Guttrock, and actually in the 1901 census I found his mother, who was a widow woman, 63, and there was a granddaughter staying with her. But anyhow, my grandmother emigrated to America when she was 18, and my grandfather, whose first cousin, was married to my grandmother's sister, Sheila Hanrahan's mother, Sheila Crowley's mother, met her, and they married 10 years after. My grandfather was a butcher in the Parker House, so they had a family then. My uncle Leo, who was a guard in Cork, you know, and O'Brien's father, Leo O'Brien, and Stephen's father. He was born in America, and my auntie Molly, she was a nurse in England later on, and they buried 2 children there. But my grandfather got very ill while they were over there, and it didn't suit him, so they had to come home. He was a butcher by trade in the Parker House. So they came home and they lived in Langford Street. He started a little butcher shop there, and of course when the people came from Glencar, when they came down on market day, they always went in for their cup of tea before they went home. So this day, and they'd bring whatever they had to bring home, their messages, and they usually brought paraffin oil, you know, to light the fire, or maybe whatever they needed it for. And didn't the paraffin oil spill, went to the fire, the open fire, inside in their little living room, and the whole house went on fire. And my grandfather, anyhow, Lord have mercy in their souls, he went upstairs to save, I suppose, birth certs and marriage certs and all that, and he jumped out the window and he broke his 2 legs. And you know who took them in? They had nothing left. Everything they had was burned. Donald Mangan's grandmother. You know, they lived where Donald lives at the moment, took them in and looked after them. And then eventually they came up and they got a cottage in Armagh. And they had the field, along with the acre, they had a field below, and they had there a couple of cows and everything. But my grandfather, Lord have mercy in his soul, he was a wonderful beekeeper. And he had apples, and he had the bees, and he had every kind of vegetable growing and everything. And he was very interested in that. I remember going to mass with him, and the bees would be flying around. He just gathered them in his handkerchief and put them in his pocket, you know. So we had plenty honey and we had plenty everything, but my grandmother anyhow looked after us, and we went to the Scoil, of course, up the road. And then when we were about, I suppose, before I went to school at 4, but before we went to school, they came to take us. And I can still remember Bernie and I running away to the end of the field, bawling. We didn't want to go, of course. So they decided that they'd leave one of us and take the other. So my grandfather stood up and he said, "You take both of them or none." You know, which was the most sensible thing. So we stayed there, and then when I left the Scoil, I went to Motherwell in Tralee. It was a secondary top. And then for my leaving cert, I went to St. Joseph's It was a presentation college, a boarding school in Thurles. And I got my carter training from there.
Oh, very good.
But Killorglin school that time, of course, it was a girls' school. Miss McCullum was the principal teacher.
And what other teachers were there?
We'd Miss O'Doherty and we'd Mrs. Tobin. Do you remember Mrs. Tobin? They had a shop at the corner.
Tobin's Corner.
Yeah, and her daughter was married to Massey Roach.
Yes.
And they had a sweet shop, of course. Miss McCullum, she was teaching, of course, in the senior classes. She never learned Irish until she was 17. It was Patsy Begley taught her.
My goodness.
Yeah, but her Irish, oh, Jerome, it was unreal, like. She was fantastic. She really loved the Irish, but she'd have seen it after school in the evening. We were down in her garden learning the Morphoheta Cloric and the Morphoheta Cotton. We did all. So I suppose it was all right. I had some bit of intelligence, but there were other children who found it hard, you see.
Tell me, so you did Irish, English, maths. What other subjects did you do?
We did needlework, of course. I mean, we did buttonholes and sewed in buttons, and I mean, it's a pity that has gone out of the schools now. You know, it's really a pity. And then Mrs. Tobin did the singing with us, the salfa. I mean, she really did the salfa. And the old songs, Kilcash and Shana, Dear Glenna, and Eamon and Cadig, and Vonnie Gallen Lee, and all those. And Mrs. Kelly then was teaching us. I forget, had she third and fourth or something. But Mrs. Kelly, even during lunchtime, she had the copies correcting them. We were all in around her. Isn't it amazing?
Amazing, yes.
She never wasted a second in school.
My goodness.
She was at it, and she cycled to school and cycled home again.
And how did you go to school?
We walked. And I remember in the summertime we'd take the shoes off, and at that time, of course, you had the dust and the road, you know,
Yes.
and it was hot, and just to see it squelching up between our toes, it was just fantastic. Miss O'Doherty then, of course, she was living in the schoolhouse up the, you know, I forget who's living there now, but was she beautiful clothes? We used to admire her clothes. Oh, we went to school just to see her clothes. But Miss McCullum, the day she wore brown, we all looked out. Whatever was in the brown, when she had something brown on, we were extra careful. But then we had great fun. Of course, the boys, we had nothing to do with the boys. We didn't even know them. We didn't even know our neighbours. You know, who lived around Armagh. We'd know, totally segregated. And this big, huge wall was up between us. So that was going on now. That was when the time that the amalgamation was introduced. I had 3 boys at the time who hated girls. And I was absolutely thrilled that we were, you know, the schools were amalgamated.
Tell me, did you do history in school yourselves? Did they mention the
No.
Civil War or anything like that?
No, we did. The only thing was the Firbolg and the two Derna. They were the only things we did.
Right.
We never did anything.
About the Civil War or anything like that?
No. And our geography was very limited too. But you see, Jerome, I mean, the children nowadays, they have television, they know all the wild animals, and
Yes.
giraffes and the cheetahs. They can tell you about all these ones. You see, it was very hard on the children before. They never in their life, apart from the ones who were lucky enough to have you'd have books, you know, they never saw those animals.
Were you affected by the World War, the Second World War now? Were there rations or anything?
There were rations during the World War, but I remember getting parcels from America. I had aunts in America, and they sent raisins, and they sent all the packets. But when I was in Thurles, I did my leaving in 49. There was rationing that time, even in the college, you know. I mean, butter was rationed. And of course I remember the coupons, the tea and all that. But it didn't affect us somehow or another, the country children, because we had plenty. We had our vegetables and we had everything.
Yes.
And So it didn't really affect us that much.
And what are your memories of Thurles? Was it a strict place, or was there? Did you make lots of friends there, or?
I'll tell you now, when I went to Thurles, of course, it was my first time being away from home. And after being a week there, of course, I broke down and I went to the principal. I don't know how I got the principal of the college, and I told her I wanted to go home. You see, I was the eldest of 8, and I felt there was an onus on me to prove myself somewhere or another. Yes. So she, in the national school, there was a Kerry nun, and she brought me along to her, and she was beautiful, and she came around me. But my saving grace in Thurles was they had a piano accordion, and I played the other box, as you know, Jerome, but I mastered the piano accordion. We had great fun. Oh, our recreation was fantastic.
Where did you learn the button accordion first?
When I did my junior cert, my father was from Donegal. When I did my junior cert, I worked very hard, Jerome, for it, and they promised me a holiday, and I went by train, believe it or not. I went by train. To Donegal, and I crossed the border. I think I stayed in Dublin with a relative. I crossed the border, and I spent 5 or 6 weeks in Donegal. And they had this old button key accordion. No one had any messing. It was thrown out. And I came home with the accordion. I patched it together. I was able to knock a few tunes out of it. And then when it was falling apart again, I had what you call it, there wasn't sellotape that time, I suppose there were plasters, and what's the thing you put in registered letters to stamp the red stuff long ago, what was it, sealing wax.
Yes.
Well, the sealing wax was wonderful. So the first thing I bought when I started teaching was an accordion from Joni Biller. When we were going to school then we played tig and all that outside, and can I remember anything else now? We did the primary cert, of course.
Oh, yes.
We did do the primary cert. But then, luckily, I got a call to training. And
where did you go to training?
Mary I.
Right.
Oh, it was desperate. That was the worst experience of my whole life. I went from the presentation nuns in Thurles, who were lovely, but the Mercy, they were terrible. They were really, really, really strict. You were called Miss. They never called you by your Christian name. And it was tough there. They had the high wall, of course, the 10-foot wall around it with the glass on top. That's gone now. We were boarders there. So that was really, really hard. We had to do needlework, and we had to do, it was really tough. And it was a 2-year course that time, of course, in my time. I mean, we did our diploma then when we started teaching. But anyhow, I succeeded in getting out of it. And I remember when I got out of Mary I in 1951, I said, I don't care whether I passed or failed, I'm out of there. And never again. But thank God, anyhow, I did.
And where was your first appointment?
My first appointment then was in Kinmere, in the Poor Clare. They had a convent there. And when I was in Mary I, they had these, these situations like, where you could apply. So I decided, well, a bird in the hand is worth 2 in the bush. I went down there, and I was there for 3 months. And of course, Kinmere, I just adored it. The people there were fantastic. I was teaching 6th class, which was tough, but they were the children were fabulous. But of course, that didn't suit the poor players. I used to come home then on Friday evening. I got a drive from someone, Mickey O'Sullivan's, the footballer, Mickey O'Sullivan. He was living in Kinmere. His mother was one of the Moriartys from up the road, and she arranged for the drive home to Armagh for me on a Friday evening. But that didn't suit the poor players. They decided then that I would teach dancing on a Saturday. And then, that wasn't even enough, they gave me the leaving cert, maths, as well to teach. 5 pounds a week I was getting. But anyhow, to go back again to Armagh, we had the Connors, you know, Johnny. Johnny lived across the road, and his aunt Katie she was a dressmaker, and we all got the scraps, and we made our dolls' clothes, and we hadn't needle and thread, of course, that time. At least it was precious, and I suppose it wasn't given to us when we were small. So we used to go and collect the thorns, you know. But anyhow, Johnny had an uncle, Teddy. You know Teddy, the Kerry football.
Yes.
And of course, my mother was Teddy's godmother. So Teddy had to be our brother. He was our one brag and boast. Oh my God, we boasted about Teddy. He was lovely, of course, but we boasted and bragged that we had a brother in the Kerry team. But going back again, then a vacancy came up in Killorglin. Mrs. Tobin retired. And she actually had told my mother that she was going to retire and, you know, get Kitty to apply for the job. But anyhow, of course, that time, Jerome, we were very naive and very, you know, and there was, what shall I say, there wasn't the protocol then that there's now about jobs and advertising and all that. So one day, anyhow, I wasn't there in Armagh at the time, but Mrs. Cable arrived in Armagh and told Bernie to tell me that I'd be going to Douglas and she was going to Killorglin. So I hit off Bernie said to me, she said, "Oh, Kitty," she said, "she had a fabulous teddy bear coat." That's all Bernie saw, the teddy bear coat she wore. But anyhow, I hit off for Douglas. And she told me I was going to Douglas. Nobody else told me I was going. So I hit off for Douglas, and Eileen O'Riordan was teaching in Douglas, Eileen. And Eileen was lovely, of course. And Eileen used to give me a drive to Douglas. So I was teaching in the boys' school. And
who was the principal there that time?
Tig Riley. But Tig was wonderful to me. He was lovely to me and gave me great advice.
Is it just the two of you that were there?
The two of us were there, and he had the 5th and 6th, and probably 3rd and 4th, and I had all the juniors. There was no playground there. We walked, the children played on the road, and we every lunchtime and break, we walked up the road during lunchtime. They supervised them. The toilets there, of course, were putrid. There were no toilets for the teachers. The toilets, they were terrible, and the ones in the Scoil were awful as well. I remember I went once and never again.
Was there a girls' school in Douglas as well?
There was.
And who was there? Who was teaching there?
Eileen was teaching there, and Anna, Mrs. Joy.
All right.
And then they amalgamated. So there were 4 of us there, and Tig was still the principal. He was the principal then, and Eileen, and I went on the panel, Jerome.
Right.
I went on the panel. I think, wait a minute now, I came out of training in 51. 52 I went to Douglas, and I think it was January 54. It must have been Miss McCullum or Miss O'Darty or some one of those teachers, but anyhow, I being on the panel, I got the job. I just heard it, that I was going to Killorglin. I got no formal notice saying you have a job in Killorglin. I went in, and Liam was there, and Michal was the principal. He was lovely, of course, he was a gentleman. And Tig was there. I got on great with
Mrs. Lamb that retired.
Oh, Mrs. Lamb. Mrs. Lamb retired. I remember going in the first day, and there were these colossal sums on the board. 5,963 and 2,800 and a plus sign, about 4 rows gone up. So I looked at the board and of course I went back and gave them the usual thing. Oh, we don't do those sums at all. They'll follow me. We don't do those sums. The ones easy ones.
This was Cedar Infants, was it?
Junior and senior.
There was amalgamation then in 1970.
There was, and I was delighted because I think it's it's more normal and natural. I mean, for boys and girls to be together. Yeah.
We'll go back now to when you were in Douglas and you were around the place and how you used to spend your time in the evenings and so on like that. You used to go to dances. I think you were in a band, were you?
I was in a band. I became great friends with Anna and Eileen. We were great friends. And then we had a group with Alfie Byrne and Sean O'Sullivan over was in, you know, we used to do fancy dresses and all that. But Anna and Eileen, they were, of course, very musical as well. And we had these concerts, even in Cremon. And they got all these young lads, you know, and girls. I mean, the wealth of talent that was there was unreal. And we had these concerts in Killorglin. And then Father Stack was very involved in the CY. So we started a band, the CY Miss Keeley band.
And who was in the band?
Liam played the violin, Dan Keating, Anna, Eileen, Kay, all that of them. And there was a fella, Foley. He lived now, I think, around where the O'Donnell's bakery is.
Oh, yeah.
And he played the drums.
I suppose Paddy Foley, was it?
Paddy Foley.
George Sticks.
George Sticks, yeah, he played the drums. And then we were very involved in the CY for a long time. Even at Puck Fair, we used to have the mineral bar and all that kind of thing, you know. And then we went, of course, I was mad for dancing. I went to the O'Shea ballroom and, you know, we went everywhere, like. But, I mean, it was absolute, it was fantastic. So I had a great time with Eileen and Anna, like we were, you know. And then up in Armagh, I had the house dancing. My grandmother was still alive, Artemis in her soul. The neighbours, Judy, Joy, you know Judy?
Yes.
Yeah. Judy was in my class going to school. Actually, I have a photograph there. I looked for it before you came this morning, Jerome, and I couldn't find it. But she has it when I was 9 years of age in Scoil Mhuire. And Peg Brosnan is in it.
My goodness.
And there's a Foley woman as well. I think she was the mother. You remember all those Foleys from over Dungiel,
Yes.
Frances Foley and all those.
Yes.
She was their mother. She was in my class.
What occasions would you play?
Did every Tuesday night. Every Tuesday night, that was our night playing the band.
In the CY?
In the CY.
For a dance, is it?
Yeah, for a dance. And
I
it was, you know, it was a kind of a Keely dance, you know.
I see, yeah.
So they'd come in and they'd dance away and we were, you know.
My goodness.
But,
And tell me, where did you meet Timmy O'Shea then?
oh, Timmy. I met Timmy actually in the CY. I met Timmy in the CY. I remember I was with my sister Mary, and Mary this night she said she was friends with someone from Killorglin. Actually, he was O'Neill. He was from Sunhill. He worked in Shannon Airport or something. And I went to the dance down Gooseberry, of course, for Mary, and I met Timmy. And he said, you know, can I home with you tonight? And I said, you might as well. I said, you might as well keep me company because I'll have to wait for Mary. So that's how I met him.
Right.
Yeah, that's how I met him.
Very good.
And of course I was mad about Timmy, like.
Yeah, of course.
Artemis saying Timmy, he was very easygoing.
Yes.
He was the direct opposite to me. I'd never do with someone like myself because if I were worried about something, he'd say, Kitty girl, he said, look, everything will be fine, don't be worrying about it.
Okay.
You know, which was great.
Yes.
You know.
And you got married then?
We got married in Killorglin and we lived in the old house and we had our kids and they grew up. I had 4 boys and I had 1 girl. So Marie is in Killorglin. James is in America. He's 4 children. He's his own business.
God bless
He's doing great, and all his children went to Catholic schools and everything. And then Donal is in Killarney. He's working in Cork at the moment with this company, and he has 2 children. They're still going to college. And Kevin is with the ESB International in Dublin. and he's living in Kinmare. He's married to a Kinmare woman, and he has 2 children, and then Tim, as you know, and Georgine, and he donated the kidney to Claudia.
Yes.
So, and Marie has her 2 kids. So I'm kind of taken up, Jerome, with the whole
With your grandchildren?
I am, really I am. But going back again to when I was going to school in Killorglin, or confirmation, Miss McCollum had us up on Saturdays and Sundays teaching us the Old Testament. And I remember when the day of confirmation, there were priests all around the church asking questions. It was terrible. Do you know, it knocked the good out of everything.
And what were your memories of Christmas time when you were young?
I remember my grandmother, the white candle. She never wanted a red candle in the house, and we always had, it was a goose we had. We never had a turkey. And of course it was cooked, and my grandmother was a brilliant cook because that was her job in America. She was a housekeeper to this family, and she was a fantastic cook. So we had our goose, and we had our Christmas cake. My grandfather, Lord mercy in his soul, how old was I? He died when I was 9. My grandmother cried for a year after him. Oh, he died during a mission. He died in his sleep. And the missioner the night before told him there was a bed in heaven for him. So it was, it was lovely in a way.
Right.
But we were heartbroken. Bernie and I were, all the neighbours heard us. We went up the road, there was Mrs. O'Neill, you know, Dan Neil's wife,
Yes.
you know.
Yes.
She was a wonderful neighbour. She went around to houses in times of trouble and all that, so she was the one we went for. And we woke everyone on the road, but we were bawling, of course. It was terrible. It was awful. But you were asking me about something else, Jerome.
Just about Christmas, yeah.
Or Christmas. Of course, my father and mother came out to Killorglin every weekend, like, to see us. We weren't kind of just dumped and forgotten about it all. But they bought the ties, of course, and they were hidden. But books, I loved books. Oh, Jerome, I never forget Grimm. One Christmas I got Grimm's fairy tales. And oh my God, it was like getting gold. It was the only thing we to do was read.
Now there was Bernie and yourself. You said there were 8 altogether. What were the others? What were the names of the others?
Well, Bernie now, she's married in Tullamore, and her husband is 90.
Okay.
So it is tough, like, she was caring for him, and she had a stroke, and now she broke her hip, and she had a tragedy in her family because her eldest son emigrated to New Zealand. He was a carpenter and joiner, and himself and his friend, they decided they'd emigrate to New Zealand. And in 10 days he came home in a coffin. They were coming from work, and a native who was drunk crashed in. There were 4 of them in the car and killed them. My sister Mary, she's still alive. She's a year younger than Mary. She's still alive. She lives in Atby in County Meath. She's a widow. Then after Mary, I had Eddie, who died last time. You remember, you were at his funeral. He died tragically. And then Joan and Patsy, my other 2 sisters, are in England. They were nursing in England. They come home now periodically. And Michael, then, he is in America. He's a house now in a Hadawahit, so they come home to that house. So that's James. When James emigrated to America, he went to Michael, which was brilliant, like, it was from home to home. And then Donald, my younger brother Donald, he did medicine, as you know, Donald, and he's retired now. They're living in Wexford.
My goodness.
Yeah, so...
Yes. They all have great, healthy, long lives.
They have.
God bless
My
them.
grandmother, Latimer in her soul, lived to be 94.
What was her surname?
Cronin. She came from Drowlock.
Above and
And her Irish, she'd fantastic Irish. While she was waiting to go to America, there was a widow woman living near her, and in 6 months she learned Irish from her. And her Irish, Jerome, of course, she had all her prayers in Irish, and shaking the ishka, koshka, and of course we weren't a bit interested in it at that time, which was, you know, a pity.
And when you were young, tell me, what are your memories of Puck?
Oh, we loved Puck. And of course it was the stalls. It was the stalls. And the few pennies. There was no Bird's Bazaar that time. And of course we would meet all the relatives and the distant relatives from the country, and we got the fairn. The fairn. I remember we bought our sweets. We got, I suppose, a penny or twopence a week. That was, you know, maybe the weekend. Massey Breen, you don't know, he was living in Langford Street. There were Breens there. This was Massey Breen, and he had a sister, Ellie, and they had a sweet shop. And we used to buy the little cushions. We called them cushions. They were tiny little sweets. But we always watched when Massey was there, because Massey never measured them. Ellie was very... Ellie, you'd only get the bare amount from Ellie. What was due. But Massey would always throw in the couple of extras. So we were very clever and cute that way, you know. But I remember going to the bog and bringing home the turf. And I hated the bog. Oh my God, it was the one thing we hated. Hated it. And because I think we got burned there and everything, although I can remember the tea in the bottle in the stockings, and it tasted fabulous, of course, you know. And the homemade bread was fabulous. But going back then to my time in school, I remember, you know, the way a couple of children stick really out in your mind. But there was one child, Dermot McCarthy.
The artist.
I spotted him. He had something. And there was another one I spotted as well, who had this special streak in him, was Tom Dial. And he was good at art too. But I remember doing art when I started in Killorglin. I did art, the competitions with Texaco and all those. There's to sing, we used to get certificates and everything.
But you were very interested in art from the beginning yourself, were you?
I was, and I think they have a hall in Killorglin this year. I know they're going to give them, but Marie, she worked at the art all right this year, and Fuss as well, you see. But, and then Mick Gallivan, of course. You don't know Mick at all, the singer.
Yes, Michael Gallivan, yes.
Michael, we call him Mick now. I made about Mick, of course, and I'm great friends with him.
Yes.
We ring each other and everything, and I go to his concerts. So that's the one thing, if he comes to Kerry, I'll be there.
I think he's a Mullingar.
Mullingar, that's right. He's a lovely fella, Mick.
And have you any other memories of Scoil Mhuire?
Oh, I remember we had Miss O'Connell. She was the infant inspector. Oh, she was desperate. And the thing about it is that she'd tell you the one thing, and the other inspector would expect something else, and you had to try and keep both of them happy. And of course we had a needlework inspector. I can't think of her name now. All I can think of is the colossal hat she wore. But then when the inspector would come, Miss McCullum would pick out 2 kids to go down to her house and make the toast and the scrambled eggs and bring them up for the inspector. And we did cookery, of course, as well. We did. Was there some kind of a range or something in the
girls' school?
In the girls' school, Mrs. Kelly did that with us. She did the cooking with us.
So you did lots of interesting things, but you did the embroidery and needlework?
We did needlework, and we did cookery, and we did Irish, and we did English. And I remember in the English we did quotes from Shakespeare, and I remember learning the oration, Mark Antony's oration at Caesar's funeral, Friends, Romans, Countrymen. We were taught all those. In 6th class we did Jimeen Varahaig, and in 5th class we did Maureen, because they were brilliant books like. And Irish was taught to us through the medium of English. I found there one day a book. I lost it. I must go looking again because I must have put it in a safe place. A book that I had when I was in the national school, and the curry kind of were unreal in it. I mean, you know, they'd come naturally, to us. I mean, even now with Katrina and Mary Katrina especially, I do speak a bit of Irish, you know. I mean, you'd have lots of little things like Isbjognar Hitchi and Nimurish, do you know, all those things that because a lot of the Irish now is very stilted, you know.
Yes.
And it's a pity, really, because we loved Irish, Jerome.
The main classes you taught would be junior classes and for first communion.
Oh, I have to go on and tell you who my next principal was after Liam. I had, was it Mihal?
That's right.
Oh, he was a dote. I loved him. Yeah. And after Mihal, I got on great with Liam too. But after Mihal, I had yourself, of course, and you were, Jerome, you were really perfect principal. You had the qualities.
Tell me this now, you have, going back to First Communion, you always prepared the First Communion class?
I prepared the First Communion class usually with Tommy. And we got on great. Oh, we got on great. He arranged them for the photographs. I said, Tommy, look, I'll do this now. You do the photographs, great. Because you see what I mean? Tommy did what he liked and was good at. He was better at the organising. He'd get them up on the pillars and everything, whereas I do other things with them. Do you know what I mean, Jerome?
Yes.
And we got on great. You know, I was very happy. I was very, very happy.
In Scoil Mhuire?
Oh, I couldn't be happier. And then I went back and of course I had Tom, and Tom was brilliant as well. I got a lot of work from Tom, and he forced me in the end to do part-time work, you know, and I loved it. I got on great. I mean, it was you brought me back after Timmy dying, Lord Mrs. because it was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Doing substitute teaching?
Oh, I did. But I taught in the Gael School. I taught in the Holy Family. I was in Tralee and the Christian Brothers. Where else was I? I was in St. Ida's and St. Joseph's. I was in Balloonach. I was in Koran's up in Castle Island. I was up in Bohetian. I went all over the place.
Yes.
And I said, I gained more experience.
Yes.
You know.
Yes, because I suppose when you were teaching yourself, you were in an island,
you
in your own classroom.
Island, and then you see, when you're doing sub, you haven't that certain pressure.
Yes.
Do you know what I mean, that pressure?
You were mad about the cards, I believe.
Oh, I love the cards. My 31, I loved them. But my grandmother taught us how to play 31. And Bernie is a brilliant bridge player, you know. I never went on to play bridge, but the cards, and of course, before Timmy died, so I went around everywhere, like, you know, to all these playing cards, to houses, and they'd be raising funds for various things, you know. And I love the cards.
And paying for the hampers, I suppose.
Oh, yes, I love the cards, you know.
31 was your game.
Yeah, and I was in the pantomimes, and I was in a few plays as well, you know. Anytime they wanted an old tune, they called me. It was usually a farshula, wasn't it? With my, you know.
Very good, very good. What would you say your motto in life was, or is?
Well, definitely, Jerome, see the best in people. Don't hold grudges. And I'd say live and let live.